David stood frozen in the middle of the glowing circle. The tribal music had stopped. The crowd of aliens, tall and graceful, stared at him like he had done something huge. But all he had done was touch a strange glowing stone, like they told him. Wasn't this just a formality? The alien woman stepped forward. She was tall, beautiful, and terrifying. Her skin was a smooth silver blue, her eyes glowing like twin stars. She wore a dark green robe with golden symbols across her chest and hips. Her long white hair flowed down her back like silk. "You touched the binding stone," she said in a calm, clear voice. "You have chosen me." David blinked. "Wait, what?" Whispers filled the crowd behind her. Some sounded excited, others angry. The woman placed her hand over her chest. "I am Zila, daughter of the matriarch. You are now my bondmate. By tribal law, we are joined." David stepped back. No, hold on. This was supposed to be a welcome ritual, right? I was told this was just a tradition, something symbolic. Zila tilted her head slightly. "It is tradition, and it is very real." One of the elders came forward, his skin dark red with green stripes across his arms. He looked at David with a slow, deep stare. "Human, you were told not to touch the binding stone unless you were ready to bond. I thought it was just decoration," David said, throwing his hands up. "No one warned me it meant marriage." Zila raised one brow. "To us, it is more than marriage. It is life-sharing, honor, unity." David looked around. The whole alien village was watching him. Children peeked from behind tall tents. Warriors stood silent, hands on their weapons. Mothers held babies on their hips, all waiting for his answer. I didn't mean to start anything," David said slowly. "I was just trying to be respectful. I didn't think." "But you did," Zila interrupted. "And the stone accepted you. It only glows for those worthy." David's mouth went dry. "So, can I undo this?" The elder looked away. "There's only one way to break the bond. You must reject her before moonrise. If you do, she will be shamed before her people. No one else will take her after." David's chest tightened. He looked at Zila. She didn't beg. She didn't even blink. She just stood there, waiting, as if she already knew what he would choose. "Why me?" David asked quietly. Zila finally moved. She walked closer, slowly, like a queen, until she stood just inches from him. "Because when you fought beside my people, you didn't take a reward. You refused gold. You helped our injured. You carried one of our old warriors when others left him behind. That is rare." He looked into her eyes. There was no trick, no game. She wasn't forcing him. She was just serious. Dead serious. David sighed. "Look, I didn't come here for a wife, especially not an alien one." "I know," Zila said, "but you touched the stone. The bond has started. And if you reject it," she paused, "I will not stop you. Then, what happens to you?" Her voice didn't change. "My clan will see me as unwanted. I will be removed from the line of succession. My mother will lose her honor. My sisters will suffer with me." David felt like he was being crushed by the air. "I didn't know," he whispered. Zila nodded once. "Now you do." A sudden drumbeat broke the silence. The crowd stepped back as two females came forward with a folded blanket and a ceremonial drink. One handed the cup to David. "If you accept the bond," she said, "drink and follow your bride." David looked down at the cup. It smelled like wild honey and fire. He looked at Zila again. Her hand was waiting, steady and calm. She didn't smile. She didn't plead. She was proud. And that made it even harder. Slowly, David took the cup. He didn't drink. Not yet. But he looked into Zila's eyes and asked, "Do I have until moonrise?" "Yes," she answered. He nodded. "Then I'll think, and I'll stay close." The elder stepped back. "Then let it be known the bond is in waiting." Zila gave a short nod and turned. She walked toward her shelter, a large stone structure with glowing blue lights carved into the door. Before entering, she looked over her shoulder and said softly, "My door will be open. I will wait." David stood alone as the crowd slowly returned to normal, but his heart was pounding and the cup still shook in his hand. He had come here to make peace. Now he might be leaving with an alien wife. David didn't sleep that night, not really. He lay on a soft cushion inside a large alien shelter made of stone and glowing fibers. The roof above him showed a moving sky pattern, stars dancing like fireflies, but his eyes kept drifting toward the open curtain on the other side of the room. Behind it, Zila was resting, or pretending to. She hadn't made a sound since they entered. The strange drink they gave him earlier still burned slightly in his chest. It wasn't bad, it made his thoughts sharper, more awake, but it didn't help with the storm in his head. What had he gotten himself into? He sat up and looked around. The room was too quiet. Outside, he could hear faint music from the village's lower levels, laughter, footsteps, but in here, it was only silence and tension. Suddenly, the curtain moved. Zila stepped out slowly. She wasn't wearing the ceremonial robe anymore. Instead, she wore a smooth, dark body wrap that hugged her form tightly, showing her tall, curved shape. Her skin shimmered under the low lights, almost glowing softly, but it was her expression that made David freeze. She didn't look angry. She didn't even look sad. She looked curious and serious. "You're still awake," she said. "I'm not used to sleeping in places where everyone wants to marry me by accident," David said with a dry chuckle. Her lips twitched. "Not a full smile, but close. You think it was an accident," she said. "But I don't believe in such things." David stood up. He kept a polite distance between them. "Zila, I don't want to insult your people. I really don't. But this bond, this law, I didn't know what I was doing." "I know," she said calmly. "But the stone knew. It doesn't respond to lies, tricks, or jokes, only to truth." David frowned. "What truth?" "That I was being friendly, that I respected your tribe, that you were ready," she answered. "Even if your mind didn't know it, your spirit did." He looked at her, unsure what to say. Her words were strange, but there was something about them that made his heart beat faster. "You're not what I expected," he said quietly. She stepped closer. "And what did you expect? A desperate female begging to be taken, or one too proud to care?" "Neither," he said honestly. "I thought this was going to be a peaceful mission. Help the village, make friends, leave." Her eyes narrowed. "So leaving is still your plan?" "I don't know," he admitted. "You're beautiful, strong, brave. Any man would be lucky to have you. But I didn't come here looking for a bond, especially not one that changes everything." She reached out, slow and gentle, and placed her hand on his chest. Her fingers were warm, soft, yet confident. "You think you still have a choice," she whispered. David's breath caught in his throat. "Don't I?" Zila stared into his eyes. "Until moonrise, yes. But after that, if the bond is not accepted, I lose all status. No other male alien or human may choose me. I will be seen as rejected. My mother's name will be stained." David looked away. "That's not fair." "No," she said. "But it is the law. Just as your people have their rules, we have ours." He stepped back, rubbing his face with both hands. "So if I leave, you lose everything?" Zila nodded once. "And if I stay, you become part of something greater," she said. "My clan, my people, my life." The curtain rustled again. A young alien girl peeked in, then quickly bowed and handed Zila a small crystal. "It's time," Zila said, showing it to him. "This stone counts down the light. When it stops glowing, the moon has passed its highest point." "How long do I have?" David asked. "Less than an hour." David stared at the glowing crystal. It pulsed like a heartbeat, steady, relentless. He turned toward her. "If I accepted, what would happen next?" Zila stepped close again. "Then you drink with me, before witnesses. Then we share rest under one cover. It need not be physical, but it must be intimate. You must show the tribe you do not reject me." David nodded slowly. His mouth was dry. "And if I can't?" he asked. "Then I leave this village at dawn," she said. "Alone, forever." David's heart was pounding now. The crystal pulsed in his vision, and Zila, tall and radiant, stood only inches away, her eyes showing no fear, only hope. He didn't know what was stronger, his confusion, his sense of duty, or the strange feeling rising in his chest whenever she looked at him like that. Without thinking, he reached for the cup left on the side table, the same one from earlier. It still held some of the bonding drink. Zila watched him in silence. He looked at her one more time. "If I do this, I need to know something. What is it? Do you actually want me? Not for tradition, not for law, but me." Zila didn't move. Then slowly, she took his hand and placed it over her heart. "I didn't choose you because of the law," she said. "I let the law speak because of you." David stared at her. The crystal pulsed again, fainter this time. And then, slowly, he raised the cup to his lips. The entire village fell silent when David drank from the cup. No drums, no music, no cheering, just silence. Zila stepped forward and gently touched the side of the cup, her fingers brushing against his. Her eyes held his gaze without blinking. Then, slowly, she turned toward the gathered crowd and raised both hands. "The bond is accepted," she declared. A wave of sound rushed across the gathering like a breaking wave. Some cheered, some whispered, some, especially the older warriors and females, narrowed their eyes, but no one spoke against her. Zila reached for David's arm and placed it over her shoulder. "Come," she said softly. "They must see you follow me willingly." David hesitated but then nodded and walked beside her. The tribal lights along the stone path lit up with every step they took. The signal was clear to everyone: they were going to share rest together, not for pleasure, not yet, but for trust, for unity. Inside her private shelter, the air smelled of soft herbs and something warm like fresh earth after rain. The walls were decorated with glowing symbols that pulsed gently with light, matching her heartbeat. A wide resting mat sat in the center of the room, covered in soft blankets made from local animal fur. Zila closed the entrance behind them and removed the top layer of her robe, revealing a simple, elegant wrap underneath. Her tall figure moved with quiet strength, her steps never uncertain. David stood near the wall, unsure what came next. "We don't need to do anything," she said gently, her voice calm. "Lying together is enough to prove the bond." He looked at the mat, then at her. "So just rest." Zila nodded. "You're safe here." David walked over and slowly sat down. The material was warm and soft against his skin. He leaned back and stared at the moving symbols on the ceiling. Zila sat beside him. She didn't touch him, at least not right away. She just sat still, watching him like he was more than just her new husband, like he was something precious. "You've been quiet," he said after a moment. "I don't want to rush you," she answered. "I want you to know I meant what I said." David turned toward her. "Which part?" "That I didn't choose you just because of the law." His heart was still racing from the ceremony, but being near her, without all the eyes on them, felt different. She wasn't as fierce here. Her eyes were softer. Her voice no longer carried the weight of her people's honor. It was just her voice. "What if I'd said no?" he asked quietly. Zila didn't answer right away. Then she said, "I would have left, but I would have remembered you. Always." David lay back on the mat, placing his arm over his eyes. "This wasn't how I planned my day. I didn't plan this either," she said. "But the stone responds to truth, our truth." She lay down beside him, leaving space between them. The silence wasn't awkward. It was peaceful. He could hear her steady breathing. Her presence was calming, even if everything about this situation still felt unreal. After a few minutes, he whispered, "Are they still listening?" "Yes," she said without opening her eyes. "The walls are sacred, but the silence tells them what they need to know. And what if I move too much and sneeze or something? They'll think I pleased you early," she said flatly. David burst out laughing. It surprised even him. Zila turned her head, curious. "You laugh easily, only when I'm nervous," he said, wiping his eyes. She reached out this time slowly, respectfully, and touched his hand. "Do not fear me, David. I don't," he replied, surprising himself again. "I just don't know what's real anymore." She leaned closer, her voice a gentle whisper. "Then let me show you." Her fingers ran along his palm, not seducing, not testing, just a quiet touch, like someone trying to feel warmth. David didn't pull away. They stayed like that, side by side, until the night grew deeper. Outside, the torches dimmed. The villagers slowly moved to their homes. The music faded to a single note, then disappeared. Inside the shelter, the only sound was their breathing. David turned slightly and looked at her. Her eyes were already on him. "I didn't expect this," he whispered. Zila smiled for the first time. Not a wide grin, just a soft curl of her lips. "Neither did I." She leaned her head gently against his shoulder, and for the first time, since he arrived on this strange planet, David felt something he hadn't in weeks. He felt safe. Not because of weapons, not because of armor. Because someone had chosen him and she wasn't letting go. The alien stars moved across the ceiling. The bond had been sealed. But tomorrow, they would learn what it truly meant. By morning, David woke to the sound of sharp voices just outside the shelter. He blinked, adjusting to the soft alien light pouring in through the crystal panels overhead. Zila was already sitting up, wrapping her robe tightly around her shoulders. Her expression was cold, now focused. "What's happening?" he asked, sitting up. Zila didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked to the entrance, opened the curtain slightly, and peered outside. Her shoulders tightened. "Trouble," she said. "They've come." David stood and followed her. "Who's they?" She looked over her shoulder. "The daughters of the rival bloodline. They think you should have chosen one of them instead." "What?" he said, confused. "I didn't choose anyone. I touched a rock." Zila turned fully now. "To them, that rock should have responded to one of them. They were raised to believe they were destined for the bond. Not me." Before he could reply, the curtain was pulled wide open. 3 alien women stepped in, tall, armored, and wearing sharp, bright colors. Their eyes burned with challenge. The one in front had violet skin and gold tattoos stretching from her eyes down to her jawline. "You are the human," she said, walking directly up to David. Her voice was smooth, but her tone was sharp. "You bonded with the wrong female." Zila stepped between them. "He bonded with the stone. The stone chose me." The other woman's lips curled. "Stones can be fooled." He is confused. His bond can still be undone. David stepped forward, trying to keep his voice calm. "I didn't even know about the law. But now that I do, I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen. Zila has been nothing but honest with me." The rival female narrowed her eyes. "You think honesty is enough to claim you? I am Veller, trained since birth for unity. I would have pleased you better. I still can." She stepped closer, so close David could smell the metallic scent on her skin. Zila's hand snapped up like lightning, her claws brushing Veller's cheek. With a warning stroke, "This is my shelter," she said coldly. "You do not speak of pleasing anyone in my presence." Veller didn't move. "You are weak, Zila. You've never taken a mate. You hide behind honor and silence. You think that impresses him? He's human. He wants passion." David was already overwhelmed. But when Zila stepped in front of him like a shield, he didn't stop her. "I would fight you," Zila said, "but that would raise your status. You are not worthy of that honor." Veller hissed. "Then I will challenge you before the elders, before the entire clan." "That is your right," Zila replied without flinching. "But I won't step aside." The other women turned and left, their footsteps loud against the polished floor. The moment the curtain dropped behind them, David exhaled hard. "Was that normal around here?" Zila looked at him. "You are not just bonded now, you are claimed. That means others will want to steal that claim, especially if they think it gives them power." "Are you serious?" he said. "Do I look like someone who gives power?" "You're human," she said simply, "and humans are rare. Your strength, your courage and word impress the elders. The bond gives me rank, and some would rather take that rank through you than earn it themselves." David sat down on the edge of the mat. "This is insane. I didn't sign up to be fought over like some trophy." Zila knelt in front of him. "You're not a trophy, you're mine. Not because I want power, but because I saw who you are when no one was watching, when others ran. You carried our wounded. You didn't look down on us. You didn't ask for praise. You were kind." He looked into her eyes. She wasn't just defending a rule. She was protecting a connection. David took her hand. "If this fight happens, what do I do?" "You stay here," she said, "and trust me to fight for us." "You're really willing to do that? To fight for a human who didn't even know what he was doing?" Zila leaned closer, her forehead touching his. "I would fight the whole world, if it meant keeping you." David swallowed hard. Then I'll trust you. Later that day, the challenge was formally announced. A duel traditional, public, witnessed by all. Zila would stand against Veller in a sacred arena. The prize was not just honor, it was him. David sat high in the viewing circle, surrounded by curious alien eyes. He wasn't allowed to interfere. He wasn't even allowed to shout. But as Zila stepped into the arena, her armor glinting under the twin suns, she looked up directly at him, and even from across the field, he could see it. She wasn't afraid. She was ready. The arena floor was silent, dead silent. Dust rose slowly as Zila walked barefoot across the sand, her silver blue armor clinging to her form like a second skin. Every part of her moved with purpose, calm, focused. Her long white hair was braided back tightly, and glowing blades hung at her sides. Across from her stood Veller, taller, bulkier, and snarling like a wild beast. Her armor was jagged and bright, designed to blind. She beat her chest twice, causing the crowd to cheer. But Zila didn't flinch. She kept her eyes on her opponent and only her. David sat above in the viewing circle, jaw tight, fists clenched. He couldn't breathe properly. Dozens of aliens surrounded him, some whispering, some watching in silence. One elder had warned him before the fight started, "You must not interfere, not even with words. This is sacred." But it didn't feel sacred. It felt terrifying. A horn blew. Veller lunged first, fast and loud. Her blade swung wide, aiming for Zila's side. But Zila ducked, spun, and struck back with such smooth motion that her blade grazed Veller's hip before anyone blinked. The crowd gasped. David's eyes widened. They circled each other now, slower, both measuring. Veller's lip curled. "You hide behind tradition, but today you bleed." Zila said nothing. She only moved, quiet and sharp like wind through leaves. Veller struck again, faster, wild now. Zila blocked high, ducked low, then rolled beneath. The next slash, she came up behind her opponent and swept her leg. Veller crashed into the sand with a grunt. Cheers burst out from one side of the arena. Zila didn't celebrate. She didn't even look at the crowd. She just waited, sword raised. Veller stood, bleeding from the leg now. "So you do have claws." She spat. Zila's voice was like ice. "I don't fight to prove myself. I fight to protect him." David's heart thudded at those words. He wanted to stand, to shout, but he didn't. He just watched, helpless and amazed. The next charge came. Like thunder, Veller roared, swinging both blades in a wild arc. Zila blocked the first, twisted, and took the second slash across her shoulder. Blood sprayed across the sand, dark, shimmering blood. David half stood from instinct, but the elder beside him grabbed his arm and shook his head. She must rise on her own, he whispered. Zila stumbled back, gripping her shoulder. Veller laughed. "You are weak." But that was a mistake. Zila let her blade drop low and charged, not with anger, with precision. Her first swing knocked Veller's left sword free. The second carved across Veller's chest plate, splitting it. The third, swift as lightning, stopped just under Veller's chin. Veller froze. One more inch and her life would end. The arena went completely still. Zila stood over her rival, breathing heavily, blood dripping from her own wound. "I could end you now," she said softly. "But I won't, because unlike you I don't fight for pride. I fight for someone I care about." Veller's eyes flicked to David, just for a second, and her jaw tightened. "I yield," she whispered. The crowd erupted in a mixture of gasps, growls, and applause. The elder in the middle stepped forward. "The bond stands. Zila, daughter of the matriarch, has defended her claim." David rushed down from the viewing circle, heart racing. He met Zila halfway as she exited the arena, nearly slipping in the sand as he reached her. "You're bleeding," he said, grabbing her shoulders. "You're actually bleeding." She gave him a small smile through the pain. "Only a little. It means the bond is worth something." He helped her sit by the fountain near the edge of the arena, while a healer wrapped her shoulder in pale green cloth that glowed faintly. "You didn't have to fight like that," David whispered. "I would have walked away. I wouldn't have let you get hurt over me." Zila reached up with her good hand and touched his jaw gently. If I didn't fight, they would never believe you were truly mine. Now, they know. You're insane," he said softly. "I'm yours," she replied. The words hit him harder than any sword. They sat like that in silence as the suns lowered in the sky, the blood dried, and the noise of the crowd faded into the distance. But David knew one thing now: this bond was real, and so was everything that came with it. That night, David couldn't sleep, not because of fear, not even because of the fight he had witnessed. It was something else, something he couldn't name. Zila lay beside him, her arm bandaged and resting gently on a pillow. Her breathing was steady, her body calm, but her mind was awake. She opened her eyes and turned to face him. "You're thinking too loudly," she said softly. David gave a tired smile. "Sorry, I'm not used to someone reading my mind. I can't read it," she whispered. "I feel it." He turned on his side to face her. "That's part of the bond, isn't it?" "Yes," she said. "As the bond grows, so does the link, not just in the mind, but the body, the heart, sometimes the soul." David stared at her glowing eyes. "You can feel my emotions, yes. Not clearly yet, but I feel the weight on you now. It's heavy." He exhaled slowly. "Because I keep asking myself why this feels right." Zila touched his chest gently. "Because it is." There was a pause, a deep silence between them that didn't feel awkward. It felt like a question neither of them wanted to ask yet. David sat up and reached for the folded cloth near the table, wiping his face. "When I came here, I thought I was going to leave in 3 days. File a report. Shake some hands. Get a medal maybe. You still can," Zila said from behind him. He turned. "No, I can't." She sat up too. "Why?" He looked at her. "Fully this time. Because if I leave now, I'll never stop thinking about you. About what you gave up, what you risked, and the way you looked at me when I was just a stranger in your village." Zila's eyes lowered. "You were never just a stranger." David moved closer, slowly. "Why me, Zila, out of every warrior, every leader? Why bond with a lost human who didn't even know the rules?" Her voice was soft. "Because you showed kindness when no one asked you to. You didn't take pride in it. You didn't demand a reward. You helped our wounded. You stayed in the mud. You stood alone between my people and the raiders. That was just duty." "No," she said firmly. "That was choice." He went quiet again. Then he said, "You said the bond grows. What happens if it keeps growing?" Zila's eyes glowed slightly brighter in the dark. "Then we start feeling each other even in dreams. You'll hear my voice when I'm far away. I'll feel your pain when you're hurt. And if the bond fully awakens, our life force becomes one." David blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said slowly, "if one dies, the other might not survive either." He sat back, stunned. "Why would your people make a bond that dangerous?" Zila looked down. "Because love, real love, is always dangerous." The room felt heavier now. David leaned back on his hands. "And if I choose to break it?" She didn't answer. He looked at her. "Zila," her voice was barely a whisper. "Then the bond tears. We both survive, but something inside us doesn't." They sat in silence again, the only sound being the wind outside gently brushing the outer curtain. David stood and walked to the entrance. He pulled it aside, gazing at the stars above. They were different from Earth's sky, fewer colors, larger moons, but still beautiful. "I don't want to lose myself," he said. "But I don't want to lose you either." She came up behind him and wrapped her arms gently around his waist. "Then don't choose yet. Just stay." He placed his hands over hers. "I'm not afraid of bonding," he whispered. "I'm afraid of what happens if I fall too deep." "Then fall slowly," she whispered back. "I'll catch you later." When they returned to the mat, Zila rested her head on his chest. Her hand found his, fingers lacing softly. "Tomorrow," she said, "the elders will call us." "For what?" "To ask what kind of bond we will take," she said. "Temporary, political, or eternal." David looked at the ceiling. "And what do you want?" She didn't reply right away. Then her voice, quiet but steady, answered, "You." The wind outside paused, as if listening, and inside, their hearts beat in rhythm, one echoing the other, slow, steady, and no longer alone. The council hall was shaped like a half circle, carved into the heart of a mountain, its walls glowing with soft blue veins of energy that pulsed like quiet drums. At the center stood a raised platform where elders of different clans sat in silence, robes flowing like water around them. The air was thick with incense and quiet tension. David stood at Zila's side, holding her hand not because he had to, but because he wanted to. She didn't wear armor today. She wore a smooth wrap of silver and violet. The symbol of a claimed woman and the glow of her markings had changed. They pulsed gently. In time with his heartbeat, the elder in the center raised her hand. Zila, daughter of the matriarch, bonded to the human named David, you have passed your trial. You have defended your claim. The bond is recognized. Whispers echoed through the chamber, some curious, some approving, some clearly annoyed. The elder continued, but now comes the final question, the choice. Speak clearly. What form shall your bond take? David looked at Zila. She looked back with calm eyes, but this time, she waited for him to speak first. He stepped forward. His voice was steady. When I came to this world, I came alone. I didn't understand your ways. I didn't mean to start anything, but something started anyway. Murmurs grew louder. I didn't plan to bond. I didn't expect to care, but she fought for me, bled for me, stood between me and danger. She didn't beg for my love, she earned it. His eyes searched the crowd. I don't know what your rules are for love, but on my world, when someone looks at you the way she does, you don't walk away. He turned back to Zila. I choose the eternal bond. The murmurs stopped. All eyes turned to Zila. She stepped forward, her voice strong and clear. I accept his choice. With my heart, body, and breath I give my bond to him forever. The elders pressed their hands into the crystal slab before them. It glowed gold, a sign of approval. Then let it be written, the lead elder said. The first eternal bond between human and daughter of the high clans is sealed. The hall erupted into mixed reactions, gasps, cheers, even some growls of disapproval, but David didn't hear any of it. Because Zila turned and kissed him. It wasn't for show. It wasn't political. It was hers, and his. After the ceremony, they walked alone through the high paths, far above the village. Wind swept through the cliffs, and distant birds circled in the sky. Zila removed her sandals and stepped barefoot along the ancient stones. I never thought I'd bond, she said. Why not? He asked. Because I didn't want someone chosen for me. I wanted someone who would choose me for real. David smiled. Guess I messed that up at the start. She laughed softly. You did. But you fixed it. They reached a quiet ledge overlooking the valley. Small lights glowed in the village below, and beyond that, the open stars. She turned to him, voice gentle now. You know, from this day, I can feel you more. He raised a brow. Feel me how? She stepped close and placed her palm on his chest. I'll feel when you're in danger, when you're sad, when you're far away. And if you ever lie to me, I'll know. David blinked. Wait. What? She grinned. I'm teasing, mostly. He wrapped his arms around her. And what do I get from this bond? She leaned into him, lips near his ear. Everything. My loyalty, my strength, my bed, my blood, my future. David held her tighter. You're not scared. I was, she whispered. But not anymore. They stayed like that for a long time, under the alien sky, wrapped in silence and wind and something bigger than both of them. When they finally returned to their shared shelter, it wasn't the same place anymore. It felt warmer, more alive. Inside, Zila lit the soft crystals around the room. The colors changed with every touch of her hand. Blue, gold, deep red. She walked toward him slowly, robes brushing the floor. No more trials, she said softly. No more outsiders, no more games. David nodded. Just us. She pulled him close. You're mine now, she whispered. And I intend to show you what that means. The crystal lights dimmed, and in that quiet, sacred room, surrounded by stars and ancient stone, to hearts one human, one alien finally beat as one.